Well, hello, everybody. Do we have a full house yet?
Yes, I think we have everybody who is going to be able to be here is here now, and because there's snow, and down behind the furniture there, and we want to really thank you for the opportunity to be here and talk with you, and also want to thank the folks who all agreed to come tonight. I think when you look at the list of who they are and where they're from, you realize it's a really remarkable group, and a lot of these folks have been in Second Life for a long time and education for a long time and are doing some really creative and interesting things. One thing we wanted to ask you, Abbe and Pete, is it okay if we record this?
Yeah, Pete asked that, and I mean, I'm fine with that. I might be a little more careful if it's recorded. But
careful is good.
Yeah, but you know, so informal chat. You know, probably easier if it's not recorded. But if you want to record it, just let me know so I know, because it's just so easy for casual conversation for certain sentences to be taken out of context if they come out in the world of Second Life, as you might be aware of. But just let me know which one you choose, and I'll be prepared.
Okay, quick vote then. What do you guys think?
I see what you're saying, but I really want to be able to consider this conversation in the future, and I can't vouch for my memory.
Yeah, it's up to you guys. It's completely up to you guys. And I'm not saying there's going to be any distinct difference in the content that comes out of my mouth with or without recording, but it's just I try to be super transparent, and sometimes that works out fine, and sometimes that can hurt you.
Right. Well, it looks like they'll go ahead and record this.
Okay, cool.
Okay, well, where we could start then would be with some of the questions that we had in the moderator. I'm going to try to switch over and see if I can get at those. And the one that was right at the top, interestingly enough, let's see, not cooperating here. Hang on a second. Okay, which just shows what practical people you have here. Will the educational discount be stable over time so education organizations can take into account for their budget cycles? So I think that reflects right off the top. One of the things that people have a concern about is the cost.
Yeah. Well, it's very unfortunate that back in the day, a while back, that the discount was taken away, and then I thought it was very fortunate that I was reinstituted before I showed up here. And I can tell you, we have absolutely no intent whatsoever to make the pricing worse for you guys. None whatsoever. and over time, and as some of you have heard us starting to talk about, that we're working on a next generation platform. I think ultimately an extremely large and vibrant and successful virtual world. I think prices have to come down over time. Today we're constrained by a number of factors: technology, business models, what have you, and user experience. That sort of limits the size of the market for a product like this. So it would be, if we, for example, if we were to cut prices in half, we would have to get at least twice the number of users, or more actually, to end up with the same revenue. And right now I'm not convinced that we have a product that could attract 2x the users at half price. So, but I'd be happy to lower prices to get more users and make it up in volume once we know we have a product that can achieve that. So I think it'd be an interesting conversation over time, especially in the educational sector, whether would an even lower price actually, let's say we take the current discount you have, which I think is about $150 for a region. If we cut that in half again and say it's $75, would we have twice as many of you buying simulators? And if that's the case, then they might be worthwhile for us to do. But if it only increases by 5% in number, then it's just hurting us and our ability to invest in the future. So, but I feel very confident in stating that we're not going to mess with the current pricing you have in a negative way for you.
I think that's really encouraging to us, and I wanted to ask if anybody had any further comment before I take the next question.
Well, it is encouraging to hear that, but I think there are a number of related issues that make the current platform problematical for educators, and a number of the questions that we've identified, I think we'll get at that if you want to move down the list, Jeff.
Absolutely.
I did want to say something about the pricing real quick, that if you did lower the price for educators, you might not see the number of users or number of buyers go up right away, because I'm not sure if you understand how the education funding cycle works, and there are, probably everyone in the room here can explain that much better than I can, but that is the issue, is getting in the funding cycle ahead of time to make sure that you have funds available for your projects. So, if you implemented that today, cutting it in half again, you would have to give the education community time to get that in their budget and make that happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's ways to solve that. I could say it's $150 now. It'll be $75 starting, next quarter, so that you can put it in your plans. I just, how much advanced notice do you need to get to be able to get it in your budget cycle?
About a year.
My Lord.
Yeah. And that's why when the funding was cut, it was so devastating when the discount was cut, because no one had enough notice to get their funding up, back up to what they needed. And so it was very, very frustrating for a lot of educational folks. So,
yeah, I understand. It was
okay.
I can't even begin to understand where the reasoning behind that whole thing happened. And like I said, I'm just very glad that it was reversed before I came here. Otherwise, I would have done that myself. But yeah, so you can at least be confident that we're not going to make that mistake again.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's go to the next one here. Is Linden Lab willing to include educators, librarians, and the nonprofit community generally in the planning for, you mentioned the new SL, and in the planning, the discussions for design, alpha testing, or just talking about what would be helpful to us in being able to help you have really good content in the new SL or whatever you're going to call it. Can we be?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Absolutely. So let me state up front that I think the educational market is should be a great fit. It's not a great fit today. It's an interesting fit today, but it should be a great fit for what you're trying to do. So I think that the right implementation of a virtual world should be a phenomenal tool for you guys. And so that's first and foremost. And then having you then therefore be part of the conversation of what that is obviously makes a ton of sense. We would have to talk to a lot of different users for a lot of different reasons, and we will definitely include the educational market in that conversation. We already know about quite a few things that Second Life could do better, and there's already conversations we're having obviously about how a next generation product could be a leap forward, but it's quite a ways in the future. A note is we don't refer to it as SL. We explicitly just call it sort of something more nebulous, like next generation virtual world, because it's still to be determined how similar or how different it is. And if we use it as some sort of SL 2.0 or some have suggested SL 3.0, then you already right away take a lot of things, make a lot of assumptions of what it should be or should not be. And we don't necessarily want to constrain ourselves to Second Life as a model for what a next generation virtual world should be. Don't get me wrong, there's a tremendous amount of good things in Second Life. So when we talk about the next generation, we describe it as being in the spirit of Second Life, which is a bit vague and definitely people interpret it in lots of different ways. But it could be many, many, many years before what really works for people in Second Life is something they could then replicate and achieve in this next generation product. Ultimately, I hope to make a next generation product so good that people would prefer to use it over Second Life, but we're not necessarily going to constrain what the next product could be or force it to be something that is necessarily too similar or to Second Life. So, and how similar or different will be, I think will reveal itself over time. But for sure, we will include the educational sector in the conversation of what it should be.
Well, I think there are two parts to including educators in the discussion. One has to do with what our needs might be in terms of what the product eventually looks like, but the other is that we actually have expertise that you might find valuable in designing your next generation platform.
Yeah, and that'll reveal itself as you participate in the conversation of what it should be, because people will be able to come in and start to experience it in potentially some sort of a closed alpha, closed beta, towards an open beta, towards a released product, and there will be many quarters to debate pros and cons of all kinds of different implementations of things that you will be able to put your thoughts and preferences and ideas forward. Clearly we're going to have a group of people here that know how to do this as well. I mean, this, I've been doing it my whole life. My whole professional career has been doing products for hundreds of millions of people. So and so we know quite a bit about this too, but we will definitely be listening to you guys for anything that can help us make a better product.
And I would just like to second what Sarah was saying. I mean, the group right here, I think you have some interesting and unique people. Emmy was there talking about accessibility and the folks that we know who use the platform to enable them to interact and create and do things that are harder for them to do in the physical world. And then Snow brought up there, I know from Snow working with students, Lori and the classes they do at SJSU, which are wonderful. You know, one of the things that works for educators, and the user-friendly issue for students in particular that we've all encountered. But let's go on to the next one here. Will educators and other cultural goods groups be able to have full ownership of their content? JJ, you put that up, and did you want to add anything or elaborate on that of what you're thinking about?
Well, the question really applies to either SL as it goes forward or the new thing, whatever it turns out to be. The big difference between the cultural goods community and most of the creators in SL is that we don't want money. We don't want our product protected in terms of people not being able to have it if they want it. What we want is attribution. And that means intellectual property rights, but ones that play out in a very different way than, you know, you ripped me off by copy-botting my, my houses or whatever.
So, I'm trying to figure out exactly what the question is. I mean, copy-botting is a tough problem to solve. I mean, you probably know that in other industries that there is no perfect, DRM solution that just works, that someone doesn't figure out how to crack. And that's just a problem for whether it's the music industry or the gaming industry. No one's figured out how to completely foolproof this in a way that's consumer friendly.
This is where cultural goods organizations are different. We want it to be copied. We want it to be maximally out there. If we want anything, we want attribution. And some cultural goods organizations don't even care about that. So it's a very different set of concerns. But the concern that remains is, will we have full ownership of our content?
Well, what does full ownership mean? How, for example, what full ownership do you not have today?
Okay, so if I create an exhibit in my library, I want to know that I can put that exhibit out, on the web. I can print up copies of the pictures and distribute them wherever. I want to be able to distribute whatever version of that content I see fit as widely as I see fit.
But we don't prevent you from doing that today, all right?
Exactly what Lady Bluebird just said.
Yes, I think one of our concerns is that the current TOS seems to give ownership of everything we create in Second Life to Linden Lab. And that's a significant problem to our home universities, because they think of our work in education as being curriculum development, and our university owns the curriculum, not Linden Lab. So somewhere we've got to figure out who owns what, or what the fair use is going to be in order to be able to work and do good work in Second Life.
Yeah. So, and I've stated this before, that it's clearly not our intent. I mean, we're a user-generated platform. All the content you see in Second Life is created by you guys, not by us. You don't really create much of any content at all. And it is your content. Now, technically, we need to have the rights to do almost anything with that, obviously, to be able to operate the service. But it never has been, and I don't think we could be successful if it suddenly did become something where we would take your content and profit from that in some way, independent of you guys allowing us to do so. That would not be conducive to a successful user-generated content system at all. It would not work. So I said also earlier that I'm going back and forth with my general counsel to try to figure out if we can modify the language in such a way that our intent there is clear, and at the same time making sure that we have full rights to sort of do what we need to do to operate the service. So we're going to continue to go back and forth on this. I don't know how easy it's going to be to create a language. I know we can't create language that's going to be satisfactory to everybody, but I don't know exactly what has to happen for it to be sufficiently satisfactory to you guys. But sorry, excuse me. Wait. No. There's absolutely no intent on our part to, somehow rip you guys, take your content and sell it independently of in some way. So, and it's just. Oh, some people say I don't sound clear.
It just got a bit better.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't do anything different. I understand what you're saying, but we have never taken any of your content and done something to it or with it that you would object to, I'm pretty sure. And we have no intent of doing that. And again, I'll see if we can work on the language to make that intent more clear. But at the same time, we have to have language that says that we can move it around, we can delete it, we can modify it, whatever needs to be done to make sure that it doesn't interfere with or causes issues with operating the service. But if you guys create an experience or some content, then that's yours to profit from and not ours to take and profit on independently. And, most of this content, I wouldn't even know what to do with without the creators behind it. Like, most of this content needs someone behind it to make sure that it operates and functions and behaves. If I were trying to take it and run it myself, I would have to hire people that would replace the content creators. That makes no sense.
I think that we've expressed the concern here and hope that we've conveyed that it's not. We don't trust you guys. I think the consensus is it's the lawyers, the administrators, and that hopefully this is something that can be worked on. But I think it's important for you all at the lab to know that there is a concern there, and perhaps that is one of the things that can be addressed over time. In order to keep moving along, can I Are you guys ready to move to the next one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And on the TOS thing, you know, the more specific, like if you have an administrator or bureaucrat or whatever on your end that says, no, you cannot use SecondLife for this, this, and that because X, Y, and Z, you know, the more verbatim we can get that kind of feedback, the easier it may be, because a lot of these conversation tends into sort of quickly devolve into sort of religious conversations rather than sort of specifics and facts. So anyway, let's keep moving.
Yeah, I think we understand that for the most part it can get into issues like that, but most people understand that it's a microcosm of the internet, and yeah, it's sex, shopping, and cat pictures, but there's also good content, and what you have here are some of the folks who provide the other content, even though we do also have cats and shopping. But moving on to the next one. Okay, SL is limited for real-life extension education purposes by a technology barrier. Not all distance students have computers that can handle SL. Will future SL upgrades keep access within people's reach, or will that be addressed only via the new platform? I think and this kind of relates to a number of the other questions we had people submitting, which were, is this going in a direction where it's going to get simpler, or you're going to need a degree like Marie does with a PhD in computer science, or are things going to get simpler, which I think goes back to Snow's point about the students and accessibility and user friendliness. And is that the direction that we can hope to see things going?
Yeah. So I think there's two things there. There's one was sort of call it the hardware requirements, and then the other one was ease of use or usability. We've done a lot of work. I mean, SecondLife today requires, I think, less hardware than it did 5 years ago almost. As you know, we keep adding functionality, but we also keep making it more and more performant, and we're going to continue to make it more performant so that the number of users that can successfully use the product with the hardware they have will increase. And for the next generation, we're even started to tackle it so that you can have access on a phone, on a pad, on a PC, obviously something like an Oculus or something like that. Something we couldn't necessarily retrofit SecondLife to be able to do. So that's something we're doing with the next generation platform from the ground up. Next generation platform will also be built in a way to be much more performant, lower latency, faster in all kinds of aspects, while at the same time providing much more functionality. So we're certainly not having plans where suddenly you have to sort of buy new hardware to use the next generation product when that comes around over the next couple of years. As far as ease of use, this is my pet peeve myself. I think SecondLife is an incredibly complex product. Some of it is due to the fact that it's basically a microcosm of almost everything you use on the internet built into one product. I mean, you have communication products, and their entire companies being bought for $17 billion doing nothing but communications, like a WhatsApp. You have a social networking product with groups and social networking capabilities, and you know, Facebook is a company that focuses exclusively on that. You have building tools that you have companies like, you know, Adobe and the guys up in San Rafael doing, you know, everything from you know, all these incredible 3D and 2D building tools and stuff. And we're, you know, and you have the whole monetization layer with virtual currency and running a stable Linden currency and all these transactions. And you add all that up, and it's like a tremendous amount of stuff that all needs to be packed into one product to make a fully functional market and ecosystem and communities to be able to function. And it's hard to be great at every single one of those, but I think we've definitely made it way more complicated than it should be. I think we can make a user interface easier for people to consume and understand. We probably have too many, I would say, edge case features that are only necessary for a select few users. But it's a tricky balance of how do you provide all the power for all these different types of users, creators, community leaders, consumers, entrepreneurs. All these different constituents have very different needs and requirements, and as soon as you start to pack all that into one product, it almost gets like there's just too much. So this is something we're going to have to get much stronger at, to create a user interface and user experience that is a lot easier to use without, at the same time, dumbing it down to the point where the incredible power and flexibility you have for creativity and engagement with each other somehow gets lost. And so I would say that's a tremendous challenge, and then to solve it across multiple different types of devices that each require completely different user interfaces. The things you want to do on a phone is going to be very different from the things you want to do on a pad. It's going to be very different from what you want to do on a PC. It's going to be very different from what you want to do in something like an Oculus. So it's a big challenge. We're going to have to hire some people that are, experts in the field of user interface design and sort of beef our skill set up in that area, and that's something that I'm very passionate about.
Okay, so I see Marie typing away over there on something, but while she's typing, I just wanted to add that I know that is one of the concerns I keep hearing. I understand you're struggling with trying to catch this balance between people being able to use the product, but also the thing that your predecessor said, calling it a shared creativity tool, which I think was one of the best descriptions of the platform ever, that all of these people that are coming together to be able to, not just the real geniuses in this room, but ordinary cyber Luddites like me are able to make things, and that's part of the beauty and wonder of this, and part of what makes it such a great educational collaborative experience.
That's part of it's part of why it's just become sort of a niche product. There's other products in the market that are complicated, like a SecondLife. I mean, you've tried to use Visual Studio to go build some applications, or if you've tried to use Maya to do some work, or even Adobe Photoshop, or some of these power tools that have not hundreds of millions of users, but millions of users, because there's only so many that have the patience or capability or interest to figure that kind of stuff out. And how do we make something that can be appealing to an extremely broad audience, and at the same time not sort of lose its appeal with sort of the hardcore users? Is like I said, it's going to be a tricky balance, and looking forward to the challenge.
Well, I think one message that we want you to come away with today is that educators have the potential for bringing in lots and lots of new users, all of whom have to have a very positive entry experience, which is difficult to create for them under the present circumstances. The positive experience comes from being able to run the application on one's own computer and to be able to understand how to use the interface. And just as Microsoft and Google have learned that catering to an educational market brings in young people and gets them inculcated with the product early in their lives, they continue to use the product and they continue to demand that it be used by future employers and so on. So I think it's really important that you understand the potential of the educational market for bringing in and training up and creating a large pool of new users for you.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And the the 50% discount is just sort of the tip of the iceberg there.
Yes, the tip of the iceberg in terms of enabling conditions, but then being able to sustain a community of students and a community of faculty who, frankly, are by and large much less technologically adept than their students are, to be able to get faculty interested in using this platform with students in creative ways is a really important potential growth market for Linden Lab.
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay, and I wanted to call attention to Marie's comment there about the immersive approach seems to be the answer to bringing people together, but I think one of the things that keeps coming up here is a very practical issue of getting a number of people together, whether it's 30 of TIA's distance learners or 50 or 100 people for a cultural performance, or now where people are doing the things where you put the stage in one sim and the audience in the other sim, that hopefully we'll be able to move on beyond those kinds of solutions. I see JJ still writing over there, but in order to keep moving along, I'm going to, if you all don't mind, I'm going to go to the next question that we had.
Yeah, ignore my scribbling, Aldo.
Okay. Okay, I think this is a couple of things we've already touched on. There's a question about, will the new platform have simple building tools that students can master? Will Linden Lab take into consideration there's a community that creates things to give away and wants attribution instead of money? Which I think we've already addressed that some. SL retaining the concept of the average person being able to build what they want, to use or sell in free competition with everyone else, or will building be geared more for professionals who use high-end 3D design tools? And I think you've already kind of addressed that and what you're shooting for the balance.
Yeah, on the we do. Well, one thing we said is the creator, and I include you guys in the word creator. To me, creator is not just the creator object, but it could be the creation of an experience, which could be a community, which collaborations with a number of different types of creators creates some sort of an experience, and that could be a classroom, or it could be a game, or it could be all kinds of different things. But empowering people to create incredible things that then in of themselves can attract meaningful audiences and happy users is sort of what we're all about. And those types of creators, you have lots of different flavors. You have people that want to create a business. You have people who want to create a 3D model of something. You have people who want to create animations. You have people who want to create solutions, like a classroom or teaching chemistry or what have you. So so we see them as kind of casual sort of creators, as someone who comes in and mostly just want to hang out and socialize and make sure that their avatar looks really cool. So they want to just do some customization and tweaking. You have people that want to do a little bit more than that. They want to own a house or rearrange their furniture and sort of make not just themselves look different, but maybe some personal space they have to look different. But they don't necessarily go and build chairs. They just want to sort of buy them and maybe change the color of them and put them around their dining room table just the way they want it. And then you have people that are going to create like incredible games, and they're going to have large staff of coders and scripters and sculptors and animators and all kinds of people to create super high-end experience. And they're probably going to work mostly outside of the tool and use high-end tools to create experiences they then import and sort of put together an experience in Second Life. So we're trying to figure out, what sequence we need to go in which of those types of audiences we want to satisfy with what kinds of tools, and then also what kinds of tools should you have available on different types of platforms. You're not likely to rearrange much in 3D space on a phone, but you might want to do some of it on a pad. And you probably want to do most of your sort of high-end creation on a PC, but then still want to be able to sort of rearrange on an iPad. So we're trying to think all that through. But ideally, you can have everybody participate in some way to sort of customizing the environment or the experience in a way that they participate. But it's going to take a while to sort it all out. But our intent is to try and not just be high-end, a few high-end creating experiences for the masses, but allow the masses to participate to some degree in the creation process.
I think we find that really encouraging when you say that about the idea that we are content creators too, because it's interesting. When we did a list, we were pulling together some information, which I had sent to Pete as well, about what we hoped you all would be getting out of this. One of the things that we wanted to reinforce was the idea that we, the kinds of folks that you have in this room right here, are not just users, but they are folks who can collaboratively and collectively work to help make both the current SL and the new platform, when it comes into being, into better products and better places, and that we are content providers and creators. Even though I can't make a wonderful mesh piece of furniture like Sarah does, most of what I do has to be rectangles, but it's a different kind of content than what builders and clothing makers contribute. We're not just content providers in the traditional sense, but also organizers of information and ideas and interaction between people. That one of the things that we have discovered, that what we are able to create is something that we've started calling collaborative self-directed learning, and that there are processes that are part of the content that we can provide to help make what you will ultimately have as a product that more people and diverse kinds of people will be interested in. So, end of rant. That was very encouraging to hear you say that, because we take that as an indication that you do get this. But there is one other question that had been on the list that I wanted to add from Ellie. The biggest problem I have in using SL for my classes is the hostility of the ed tech people at my institution. They won't support me. What is the lab doing, or could the lab do, to inform CTOs and other academic tech people about the possibilities of SL for education?
Well, what objections do they have?
Ellie, do you want to elaborate?
They say it's old-fashioned. They say it's first of all, it's too much to. They won't take my students in and help them if they have a problem with sound cards and things. They won't do that. It's too complicated for them. Basically, these guys, you can sell them something. Adobe can come in and sell them something.
and they're willing to pay yards and yards of money, but they're not. They're very fashion conscious. Really, that's what it boils down to. Second Life is not fashionable right now with these guys. What can you do to make it fashionable? That's all it is. And in fact, I would take that one step farther and say I also teach seminars to graduate students. I want to get them in here teaching students as well. But they think, well, it's a video game. Well, it's not fashionable. I mean, there's got to be some kind of buzz to these people. If there was a buzz out that it was the next thing, they'd all be in here like, you know, like a flip window shade.
Yeah.
So
like they were in
2007. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
When it was probably overhyped, and the experience that people got was not in line with the expectation given that hype. So we have to be careful to make sure that it has just the right level of hype. Well, I mean, Peter and I we're talking to the press. We have been for the last week or so. You might have seen some articles start to pop out, and we're trying to be a little careful. We're not trying to go out there and again and say that this is the end all be all best thing since sliced bread, but we're saying here's a fact. If you're interested in virtual worlds and virtual reality, then this is de facto best virtual world that has ever been created. It's the best virtual world that exists today. It's the most successful virtual world that has ever existed that includes today. You have a cool, fashionable company that maybe those techies you're talking about think probably would be cool, like Oculus and Facebook saying they're going to go build a virtual world for 1 billion people. Well, if you want to start to get clued into what a virtual world is or could be or should be, if you're not in Second Life, then you're completely clueless about what a virtual world can and should be. And then you're just waiting for something in the future to maybe satisfy whatever those two words might mean to you. There's a lot of weird reasons for why maybe the stigma or aura around Second Life took a hit. Some of the, call it anarchy kind of behavior inside the product, some of the griefer attacks have generated some negative press. In fact, that there's adult content in some designated area. The fact that it's been around for 11 years. The fact that it was hyped at some point to solve everything and be greater and would replace the internet as we know it. Didn't happen, so it's therefore deemed a failure or something like that. Well, meanwhile, it's a very successful product. It's been very successful for us and for a lot of users. And virtual worlds will be, it's just a business that's going to grow and grow. There's going to be a lot of competitors in the market. I think Oculus and Facebook and that whole thing has just completely made words like virtual reality and virtual worlds interesting and cool again. So that's partly why Pete and I are sort of talking to press and saying, well, now that you want to talk about virtual worlds and how cool that is going to be or whatever, well, you have to consider Second Life as the number one player that exists today. And will there be something better in the future? Of course. And we're going to try and be part of making sure that we're the ones that deliver that. Continue to make Second Life better, to maintain our lead while we invest heavily in sort of a next generation product we think can have even broader appeal and create more interesting content at lower cost. But that's what you have to try and tell people. I don't know what else you think I can do to get people excited about it today.
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, actually, because I think one of the things that you can do, again, looking around the room, you've got folks here, for example, who are part of projects that have quietly kept going and lived past the era of hype and are doing interesting and sometimes extraordinary things. SJSU consistently doing very well with their classes, and the not to toot our own horn too much, but I hope you come by and see Sorrentina sometime. And I'm happy to talk about collaborative self-directed learning, and that we've stuck with the platform and have kind of managed to figure out what they couldn't figure out in 2007, which is how to actually use it in a way that isn't just building a virtual copy of your bricks and mortar classroom. So,
it's a new medium. It's a new medium for us. It's a new medium for you. And it's going to take us and you all together quite a while to figure out how to master. I mean, look at any medium, how long it takes for it to get to where it is. And if you look back 10 years and just go, my God, look at what TV was doing 10 years ago, or movies was doing 10 years ago, or written content, how you consumed it and what you could do with it. I mean, it's all changing very, very fast. And for a lot of people, I think, this medium just went above their head. They couldn't even comprehend what it is and what it's for, and that it takes quite a bit of learning for all of us to figure out how to get the most value out of a medium like this. So yeah.
Yeah, and the idea that we're still learning and trying to understand how people share and assimilate and acquire information and create communities within a platform like this. And we're still really just experimenting and learning as we go, but there are wonderful things that you can point to. The last thing that I wanted to bring up, because we do understand it's the end of your workday, and you probably want to go home and see your family sometime.
My family is all away, so it's just me. So you can keep going.
Oh, cool. We'll keep talking then. You just really put yourself in a world of hurt there, son.
No, it's all right.
Okay. One of the questions that Lorraine was bringing it up, I know Lorelei has brought this up, that people are really curious about, is how Oculus can and will potentially work into things, and where that technology will be going. Lori, did you want to say more about what your actual questions and curiosity about Oculus is, and what you might see as potential?
I'm not hearing any follow-up there. So,
okay, she's putting it in chat there.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. There's obviously hardware. I would expect the Oculus to probably be around $300 or something. I'm not sure. I haven't heard them say exactly how much it's going to be, but so you're probably not going to dole one out per student or anything like that, where everybody can participate in one single sort of virtual space. 30 students all at once. It might if you're not giving them, laptops today, then I'm not sure about Oculus devices. But we're going to try and do our best. It works today. You can use the Oculus with SecondLife today. We're doing it now, and it's in the beta viewer, the project viewer, as we call it here. And we've done it so that we can get feedback from our users about what it's like, and for us to learn about the technology. One thing you learn pretty quick when you strap that thing on your face is that your keyboard and mouse are no longer exactly totally relevant unless you're a very good touch typist. So figuring out, then you have to think about completely new paradigms for how to interact with the environment you're in if you're not doing it primarily with keyboard and mouse. So okay, now you're looking at companies like 6th Sense with their STEM system, or Leap Motion, or all kinds of weird hardware for being able to control the environment with your hands, and or some systems like Kinect that can read your movements and translate those into actions you would want to happen in the world. And that's going to take quite a while to figure out how to make it so that most users can just wander into an environment like that and successfully navigate, communicate, and do things to the environment with just waving their hands around. But it's something we have to explore. Things will go in that direction where the keyboard and mouse are no longer primary input devices. And the other thing we have to do is make the technology better so that the latency and the performance gets much better, because you have just enough lag or whatever, or resolution or lag or performance problems, then the Oculus experience can be quite bothersome. And most people have tried it today, which is a combination of the products that are being tested with as well as the hardware itself. It's just not at the point yet where it just feels natural. You get a lot of people today get sort of motion sickness. I get motion sick very easily. I can't sit and read on my phone in the backseat of a car without getting motion sick in seconds. So there are certain activities with an Oculus in SecondLife that I get motion sickness quite quickly. And those are technological problems that can be solved, but it's both hardware and software that had to sort of move in that direction. So with the next generation platform, we obviously try to make sure we get all of those performance characteristics to a point where it'll be an ideal companion with the Oculus. So that's one piece. We're going to continue to integrate Oculus into the main SL viewers, and so that creators are starting to use it, and they're realizing that, oh my God, in this context of an Oculus, I would actually create my content differently. I would not make these fake trees that you can obviously see are fake as easily in an Oculus, and I wouldn't put up these signs if I knew I had an Oculus. I would do it in a different way. So it's starting to also educate the creators of how to create content that is optimized for an Oculus experience. So it's us learning, it's you learning, and it will take quite a while, I think, before enough users have an Oculus and there are enough Oculus experiences that it's going to become something extremely widespread. It will take a while, but I'm super excited to see that it's happening. I mean, not just a few years back. A couple of years back, you would have expected to pay tens of thousands of dollars for something like the Oculus, and that it's now coming down into just the hundreds. It's an incredible step forward. So super excited, but it's going to take time, and it's going to take a lot of work on both our part and your part to ultimately make experiences that are great with the Oculus.
Okay, we're getting down to some questions that we've gotten through the things that have been submitted in advance. One thing that Lori wanted me to ask, are you all considering hiring an educational contact person, like Pathfinder, and except perhaps a little less theory and more practical, to work with the educational community, bring us together, help us to grow, be the liaison between all these cool creative folks like you have right here and the cool creative folks that you have in your office?
Yes. I've heard Pathfinder mentioned a few times. I sort of and heard a lot of good things with the ways he engaged with particularly you guys in the education segment. As you know, right now, I'm not sure in the short term that we'll do it, but we're going to have to soon, probably first half of next year, when our next generation platform starts to get to the point where starting to really engage with all kinds of different user segments, different use cases, of which, of course, education is one very important segment. So thinking about what types of user bases we need to have, what kinds of conversations with, and how do we scale those conversations well and make sure that that helps us and helps you sort of arrive at the right endpoint is something that I feel we're definitely going to need to do. So it's not something that I'm sort of right now. I'm just worrying about hiring a lot of engineers and product designers to go build a next generation platform. Whereas I don't, for the next 6 months or so, have a lot of, I could learn a lot from you guys in the next couple of weeks, and I wouldn't be able to do much with it for a while, unfortunately. But we're still going to continue to invest in Second Life and make it better. So please don't stop providing us all kinds of insights and feedback on what we can do to make it better. But I'm not sure if it's at a point where I need to hire a full-time person to have that engagement. But so I would expect people that sort of take an active role like that to be more towards the first half of next year.
Okay, I think that's really good to know, and correct me if I'm wrong, folks, but I know again the concern a lot of people raise about, are we being taken seriously? Are we a market that we know we add value and depth to the platform and the experience on it, but does Linden Lab and I think what I've heard from quite a few people has been, gee, having Pathfinder Junior would be a physical manifestation, a representation of that kind of commitment and perspective. Now, Ellie, you have a question too that you wanted to throw out there, and anybody else that has another question that wasn't pre-submitted, let me know, and we'll make sure that you get included.
Actually, that was my question. The idea of it wasn't just Pathfinder. It was just the idea of what Linden Lab is going to do to keep tabs on what's going on with tests, to keep the conversation going, keep the connections alive, because it's I think that's the most important thing that we can get out of this meeting.
Well, and I'm obviously here for a reason. I want to be part of the conversation, and I want to make sure that that these conversations take place. Ultimately, I won't scale personally to have these conversations with everybody all the time. So we're going to have to find people within the organization, or even hire Pathfinder Junior, or if that to be able to scale having these kinds of conversations. But right now, there's just in our product cycle, there's a ton of conversations we're having amongst ourselves that we don't right now at the moment require a ton of external input. We already know so much that needs to be done. They're just sort of the basic building blocks of doing this next generation platform, and we will get to the point where your feedback will be more directly relevant to what the shape of that thing should be. So I think it's just a sequencing thing, but no doubt that at Microsoft, where I worked back in the 90s, we had a specific discipline that evolved. It used to be just engineers building products, and then product management people sort of selling the product or doing the marketing of the product. And then they introduced the notion of program management, which many places call product management, that would basically take all the requirements from the world and create the specifications or package in a way that engineers would know what to do. And then you ended up creating another organization in front of product management called product planning, that actually spent most of the time outward facing in the market, working with customers, users, understand their needs, their requirements, their pain points, their opportunities, packaging that up so that product management could then package up the specifications for what it should be done, so engineering then could go build it. So you kept adding these layers to sort of interface with the world around you in the right way. So I've seen all of those models, and right now we're sort of at the engineering stage of our evolution of our portfolio, and we'll we'll expand as we go along. So fairly quickly. So like I said, first half of next year, I think you'll see us being much more proactive in having conversations with you guys and giving you guys access to early prototypes of our products and get specific feedback on what it should be to solve the problems you're trying to solve. So It'll come, but right now it's just a lot of engineers we need.
One thing I want you to tell your engineers is that you're going to get a whole lot more participation from educators next January if we know that all the work we've put into building our curricula and doing our educational products and projects in Second Life can be ported to the next generation platform so that we don't have to start at square one all over again.
Well, and that's where I potentially have some sobering news, is that in order for the next generation product to be as great as we believe it can be, I think it would be almost impossible for us to solve that problem if 100% backwards compatibility, where everything that exists in Second Life would just carry on in that product as if nothing happened. If that was our approach, I would not even call it a next generation product. I would call it more like, actually call it SL 2.0 and sort of give the impression that it's really just an upgrade. We're talking about something more severe than that. A lot of ways that content's created today in Second Life is not how it should be done. Whether it's our avatars or prims or scripting language, or there's skeleton structure. There's so much stuff that's just not done the way it should be. And if we have to do it in this next generation product the way it should be, and at the same time try and support the way it used to be, then the product will just become even more complex, and it would be difficult to do. So right now what we've said is that we're not going to take backwards compatibility in as a requirement, because it would constrain us too much in how we think where it needs to go. But at the same time, we're saying Second Life is not going away. We have no plans to shut it down. So you can all of the learnings you do, never mind just the specific things you've built, but all the learnings of how to create an environment and a solution and an experience that's relevant to an audience. We're certainly hoping that you can create something that's going to actually fulfill what your dreams are in creating those experiences much better in the next generation product. So there will be net new work, but hopefully it'll be less painful to create that work in that product than it is in Second Life. Not hopefully, I mean, that obviously has to happen. Otherwise, it's not going to be a huge step forward. But it'll come at the cost of not necessarily being able to leverage everything you've created in Second Life, for free, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Makes sense from a technical point of view. We'll have to see what you come up with.
Yeah. And there will be plenty of time, as we continue to invest in Second Life and make it better and better over the years. This thing will start to come up next to it in some other shape, form, whatever, and you will be able to go over there and you will be able to choose when you think the right time and place is for you to sort of spend your energy there versus here. I don't see that we have a choice. So we have absolutely no deliberate sort of migration scheme for moving all users from Second Life to this new thing. I mean, it's way too far into the future to even begin thinking like that. So this place will be around for a long time, and you can choose over time. At some point, if everybody but two of you say that this new thing is better, they're going to spend all their time there, and for some reason two of you don't think that's right, then yeah, that's going to be a bummer for a couple of you. But hopefully it's going to be the right answer for most people, but it'll take a while.
Okay, Emmy had a comment that she wanted to contribute. Emmy?
Yes. Hi. I'm with Virtual Ability, and we do disability support in community. And I think one area that we've kind of overlooked is the way that Virtual Ability works. And we don't ask our members for funds, but we work on research funding with universities and government entities. And so we've got like over $2.5 million. We're partnered in over $2.5 million worth of research with 5 different institutions that we're working with. So that's how we fund our work in Second Life. We started out as a Second Life group, a community, and we created a nonprofit to support that community. And as far as we know, we're the first ones to have done that back in 2007. So I think the research funding aspect is a huge aspect that Linden Lab is overlooking because there's a lot of research dollars out there, and Virtualability is actually compiling a list of all of the virtual world research done on disability issues, and we'll be publishing that online so that other people that are wanting to do research in Second Life will be able to quickly find references that they need when they're trying to justify why they want to come in here and do research as well.
That sounds fantastic. So how can we better help each other?
Well, I think that you would probably want to sit down with our organization and have a conversation about that. But that definitely is a path that more people could take to to get funding, and it's such a great way. I'm always shocked that Linden Lab never took that path themselves to be a partner in that research to get part of that funding. So that was never. They never wanted to do that. We were going to buy the enterprise system from Linden Lab for one project, and that fell through. But other than that, other than buying just regular land for these for the research to build the research projects, Linden Lab was never interested in working with us. So.
And what could we have done differently if we did work with you? What is it that's is it about making more people aware that there are additional ways to get funding to do things in Second Life? That's the issue, that people don't know that that option is on the table? Or is it that we don't somehow provide a system that people are willing to do research in? Or what's the
well, I think there are probably several ways that you could help out, but one would be, working with us to make sure that we have, what we need on our side. The technology side of, we work with university IT people, and like they were saying earlier, yeah, exactly. It's hard to pinpoint, but unfortunately, my boss is on vacation, Gentle Heron. So if you haven't met her, then you really should. I think she transcribed for you when you spoke at the Virtual World and Best Practices in Education. So, but she would have a lot more ideas about how you could assist us when we're doing these research projects.
Okay, and I think kind of where this is going relates to what I think may be some of our last couple of questions. One of which was one that JJ had brought up about, Emmy's talking about research, all this great research that they've done, the information that they have. And are the Lindens aware of the research being done on SL? And would you all be interested in a list and links and copies of documents of research on retention and distance learning and some of the things that people like Sarah is looking at about how people learn differently and share information and ideas differently in virtual spaces? Would you guys have an interest in having this provided to you and some help in sorting out the wheat from the chaff?
Absolutely.
Okay, then the next question is, and I think this goes with what might be our last question from Sarah about, so what's the conduit for continuing conversations with you all, and for us to be able to, hey, they'd probably love to see this great study on retention or this article on distance learning. And, even if you don't have a dedicated person on staff, the education liaison or the cultural nonprofit liaison, that is there some way perhaps that we can provide a little bit of structure to what we've started here with a group that could continue to communicate with you all and have a specific person or a way or as Sarah says, a conduit for communicating and sharing information and ideas that might help you be that much readier down the road. And
yeah, I mean, I've met with quite a few groups now within SecondLife. Some with similar agendas and some with slightly different agendas, or not agendas, but perspectives. And what would be helpful to us, I think, is the more you guys can work together to come together on as common a view as possible of what you guys think are the most important things. For now, that's fine if it's in the context of SecondLife, but even feel free to think outside the box of what you think is even possible in SecondLife, because we're going to do a next generation platform that will take us to another level. But because we obviously hear from a lot of individuals about individual needs, and then we have to spend a lot of time figuring out, well, how relevant is that to how many people? What are the priorities of these things? Because we get these one-offs. I want this, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. And it's like, okay, there's like thousands of these one-offs requests for things. And then we have to spend the time figuring out, okay, how relevant are these things? How important are they to what types of users? How does it prioritize with everything else we have on our roadmap? So the more packaged you're thinking as, call it an education community, are the things that would make a big difference. And as you start to really think about all the things you can do to make it a better experience, a better product that has more traction and could help you achieve what you want to achieve, the more of a common view you can start to have on that and sort of do some of that packaging for us to come up with a prioritized list of what you guys more or less collectively believe. I'm sure you will all have slightly different opinions, but that's the tricky part, is to consolidate it and to prioritize it and to have descriptions that someone other than yourselves could actually absorb and understand. That makes it a lot easier for us if it's sort of collective perspective on priorities and requirements. Otherwise, that takes a lot of effort for us. For everything people bring up, we have to sort of stick it in a list of 1,000 things and figure out where in that list it belongs.
I wonder if I could just butt in here for just a sec and remind everyone about the new project, the Virtual Worlds Education Wiki, which might be useful to help with what we're talking about here. It's established as a for research, for grant writing, for people connecting with other people. It's cross-platform, and that might be a useful tool to do what we're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know that we provide a great solution for it. I don't know if our forums or solutions that we offer for sort of interacting with customers is suited for this, but I would love for it to become that over time, where it's much easier for us to collaborate on what matters and what doesn't. But the more you guys can talk amongst yourself and sort of try and sort of come up with a prioritized roadmap, if you will, the work we have to do for what the things that would make the biggest difference, whether it's product related or not. And then we can maybe meet up in a couple of months if you guys can put something like that together, and I could bring in some more product people into the room here, and we could sit down and discuss your priorities. And some of them will overlap with things we've already planning to do. Some of them might not. And then I think that'll help move things along. Otherwise, it's all just one-off stuff.
Okay. Well, Lori and I were just talking, and something I think some of us may want to kick around is, do we have the foundation for a functional education and information sciences and cultural interest group here? That I think what Abbe's been saying about having a collective rational voice that is expressing in a collaborative way perspectives in an active and positive way rather than our own bizarre agendas. Something to talk about. This is a great group of people here tonight, and again, I really appreciate Abbe coming to talk to us. And okay, all right, diverse. Not it's all about the adjective. Yes, diverse, not bizarre. Thank you, Sarah.
Although there's a fair share of bizarre stuff too, but
well, yeah,
interesting.
but bizarre has its. I'm sitting here in a powdered wig and a small sword and knee breeches. So what can I say? But I do think that this is a really interesting group of people we have here. Yes, and Snow is a tiny ferret. But I hope that we'll keep talking and perhaps see how we can come up with a way of continuing to have this group of people come up with a consistent collective message, and without duplicating what other people are doing, or perhaps collaborating with them as well to get an even more collectivized voice. But again, we're at about the 1.5 hour point, and I kind of promised people we'd shoot for 1.5 hours max. Again, I really appreciate Lori initiating this, and the help that Sarah provided, and JJ in organizing and thinking things through. And also, Abbe, to tell you the truth, when we started this, we weren't expecting to see you. And it's a real pleasure and a pleasant surprise. And we take it as a really good and encouraging sign. Thank you for coming and talking to us.
Well, thank you. Without this dialogue, it would be difficult for all of us. So I'm happy to participate. It's unfortunate that it's surprising that I would be here, but now you know. I'm happy to be part of the conversation. And you let us know when you think you have sort of the next step where you feel like engaging again in conversation would sort of move the ball forward in a meaningful way. If you have had some time to work amongst yourself and coming together and thinking about what would be the most impactful things that we could do together to collectively make what we all know can be much bigger than it has been so far come to reality. So thank you for all your contributions and participation, and please let Pete know when you're ready to have another round of conversation, and if you prepare us a little bit with your thoughts on topics you want to discuss, and if you have some prioritized list of whatever they may be. It'll make it easy for me to understand who the best participants can be to help take the conversation to the next level. And yeah, meanwhile, any stories you have that's worth highlighting, you know, I'm happy to retweet or for us to market or expose some of the great work that you or others you know of are doing, whether it's in the education space or other, so that we can sort of help promote it. You know, I thought the video Dragster did with regards to the woman, I forget her name, the woman in Texas A&M with the video of her doing the chemistry lessons and doing a testing of students in world and in the real world and comparing how well they retain subject matter and stuff like that. I mean, I would love to promote more types of things like that to help show the world what's possible in here that we all know is possible, but most of the world doesn't. So please shoot us those whenever you have them. And then or someone's asking for the link. I think Pete can let you all know where to go see that video. And yeah, and then yeah, like I said, let Pete know when you're ready for the next step.
And likewise with those use stories, please feel free to ping them my way. As Abbe said, they're great for us to have on hand, to know about, and we'd love to do what we can to help promote them to the outside world.
Thank you all.
Thank you, gentlemen. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Have a great evening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much.